morning, everybody. We have a little change of pace for our literature lesson today. We are going to be focusing on some of the different elements of poetry and literature, talking about some specific terms that you hear occasionally as we talk through some poems and things in our Farmer Boy story as well. So you actually will need to open up your binder for today's lesson because we're going to be taking some notes and filling in some examples of different poetic devices. I'm going to have my document camera on so that you'll do the notes along with me today. And we don't have a literature notebook, so this will just be in your binder. We are going to refer to it after spring break when we come back, though, because we'll get into a little bit more detail of some of these different devices. We'll start off with a header at the top. We'll be watching this on March 19th, and these are literature. We're going to call this Poetic Devices notes. Okay. Literature Poetic Devices. So there are several different things that authors and poets use to enhance the way that something sounds, either to make it rhyme or to have some specific visual terms that they use. And the first one that we're going to look at is called alliteration. So I'll have you write the term alliteration here. Now, alliteration is when there is repetition of something at the beginning of a word, specifically some consonant sounds. So I'm going to look at a poem that we did a while back, Adventures of Isabel. Okay, in this poem, we have some alliteration here with the bear's big mouth was cruel and cavernous. That's a great example of this alliteration. Cruel and cavernous, both starting with a C. Also, bear's big mouth. It basically really drives home the sound that's happening here, and it sort of is more memorable when you have that repeated consonant sounds at the beginning. So we're going to write repeated initial, which means the first sound in a word, consonant sounds. Consonant sounds. I will also have these notes posted in Bright Thinker so that if you're not able to see the cursive very well or understand it, you can just do it there. It's going to be the same notes, but I definitely think it is better to do it through the video so that you're actually listening to some of the examples. So I do want you to write an example as well. We write example. Cruel and cavernous. You could also say, Isabel didn't scream or scurry. That's another one. I'll have you write both of those. cruel and cavernous, scream or scurry. So that is an example of alliteration, that repeated sound at the beginning of a word, specifically repeated consonant sounds. There's a different word that we use for vowels. Okay, the next term that I want us to write, and obviously this might be a little longer for all of you to write in cursive, so you are welcome to just pause the video at any time. This next word is kind of a longer one. I want you to write onomatopoeia. I know that's a mouthful. Onomatopoeia. I mentioned this in Farmer Boy, so you might have picked it up then. Oh, I misspelled it. Forgot the O after the P. Onomatopoeia is when you have a word that sounds like a sound effect, sort of. So it's written out the way that it would actually sound. So we'll write words that imitate sounds. So an example of this would be the fifes tooted and the flutes shrilled, and the drums went rub-a-dub-dub. So as an example, and I'm just going to put EX for example now. You could say rub-a-dub-dub. That part alone is the onomatopoeia. Or in alliteration, the louder buzzed the telephone. The word buzzed is called buzzed because it's actually the sound of like a buzzing phone. It sort of goes bzzz. So those are actually words created to sound like the actual sound. Okay, let's do another one that we just talked about recently with the poem Trees. Personification. You guys remember that the word person is in this word. Personification. You can underline that part if you want to. It's something that makes an object seem like a human. Make something seem human. So an example of this is in that poem Trees. Lift her leafy arms to pray. Her leafy arms. Her and arms especially make that seem like the tree is a human. That's a really good example of personification. Another example is like in Catch a Little Rhyme. It says, once upon a time, I caught a little rhyme, or it's making it seem a little more like an animal. But I set it on the floor, but it ran right out the door. So it makes it seem like the rhyme actually is able to move around. Okay, once again, you can pause at any time. Let's move on to another one though. Another literary or poetry device is a metaphor. Now, a metaphor is when you compare two things that aren't really similar. Now, it's kind of like a simile, which we're going to get to next, but it does not use the words like or as, and the other one does. So I'm going to have you just write comparison without like or as. Without the words like or as. So like in Jimmy Jet in his TV set, he is basically compared to a TV, right? And his ears are like control knobs. And like, yeah, every part of him, his brains are TV tubes. We could write that as the example. Jimmy Jet's brains, or Jimmy's brains, or not brains. I don't know why I kept saying that. I was thinking of the tubes being plural. Jimmy's brain is compared to TV tubes. Another good one from, or a good example from our poetry is when we did By Myself by Eloise Greenfield. She compares herself to a lot of things, like I'm a twin, I'm a dimple in a chin, room full of toys, I'm a squeaky noise, I'm a gospel song, I'm a gong, leaf turning red, loaf of brown bread. All of those are examples of metaphors. We don't have like or as, but you're comparing two things. So all of those things from By Myself would be examples of metaphor. Now on to the other one I mentioned, simile. Oh, I just noticed that simile is just like we did the other day, recipe. It's the same spelling pattern with that E at the end, so it's probably French. So a simile is a comparison using like or as. Using like or as. So there's a bunch of examples in Farmer Boy, like says at one point that like the lash of the whip from Mr. Course was quick as black lightning. Quick as black lightning. That would be a good one. Could say Mr. Course's whip was quick as, there's the word we're looking for, quick as black lightning. So it's using like or as. So we're comparing a whip to lightning. That's how fast it is. Up here, it's a brain being compared to TV tubes. Okay, we got two more, and so I'm going to be able to fit one more right at the bottom, and then I'll end up having one on the back too. So another poetic device or literary device is having some repetition. Repetition is probably just what you're thinking it is. It's when there is something repeated. word or phrase repeated. For example, we had that poem For Want of a Nail. Do you remember that one? For want of a nail, the shoe was lost. For want of a nail, the shoe was lost. For want of a shoe, the horse was lost. For want of a horse, the rider was lost. For want of a rider, here it is, the battle was lost. For want of a battle, the kingdom was lost. And all for the want of a horseshoe nail. There's all of the for want of something, and then another thing was lost, showing how even the tiniest thing can have big consequences. So let's write that. For want of dot, 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 meaning there's going to be some missing words between for want of and the next part. Blank was lost. For want of something was lost. That's some repetition. It makes it really catchy when you've got that repeated over and over again. Okay, you can pause if you need more time on that one. And I'd love for you all to be thinking through some other examples of this from our poems, but also from books, because it definitely happens in books as well. And one more thing that we're going to be writing about in these notes is rhyme scheme. And we definitely have a lot of rhyming in poetry that we're learning, at least for third graders, but even poetry that you would learn more in like junior high and high school, a lot of times has rhyming. All right, rhyme scheme. Oops. Rhyme scheme. Rhyming is words that end with the same sound. Same sound. Sorry, that was really too close together over there. Let me just start over here. Words that end with the same sound. So almost all of our poems have rhymed. I guess For Want of a Nail didn't rhyme. But like Father William, which we did recently, definitely had rhyming lines. You are old, Father William, the young man said, and your hair has become very white. And yet you incessantly stand on your head. Do you think at your age it is right? Go ahead and write just part of it. You are old, Father William. You know what? This is going to take too much time, but that is a good example of rhyme scheme, but I don't want you to have to write the whole stanza. Let me just show you this one, and then we'll write something shorter for the notes. You are old, Father William, the young man said, and your hair has become very white. Now, those two don't rhyme, but look for one that does. And yet you incessantly stand on your head. Do you think at your age it is right? That's right. Said and head rhyme. And white and right rhyme. So what we call this actual rhyme scheme would be A, B, A, B. And the reason for that is this word said is the very first one, and we put an A next to it, and then any other word that rhymes with it will get an A too. So A and A, said and head. Now the next one is for the next word that doesn't rhyme. So white. Then we'll put a B next to any other word that rhymes with white. White and right. So that's A, B, A, B. Now, here's the crocodile. That's the same kind. Crocodile, Nile, tail, scale. A, B, A, B. Now, Adventures of Isabel, bear, care, ravenous, cavernous. So in this one, it's two words in a row that rhyme with each other. Bear, care, same letter because they both rhyme. Ravenous, cavernous. So we can write, for an example, a lot of good ones, but something like crocodile and Nile. We'll just write the exact words that rhyme. And Nile. Okay, and we can have that AABB or ABAB is what is most common in our poems. Sorry, this is why I do the thick pencil usually, because it doesn't break as often. But so AABB or ABAB, every other, this one is every other line rhyming, and this one is two in a row that rhyme, and then another two in a row that rhyme. So you can write an example of that if you want to, but I'm just writing that as a little reminder. Don't want there to be too many notes today, though, so I'll leave it at that. Okay, well, that was your little lesson on poetic devices. We will be looking for those in our poetry and books, especially over the next, once we come back from spring break. We'll be really focusing on that and reviewing all those terms, practicing how to find those. So I have that in Bright Thinker as well. If you have a hard time reading cursive, feel free to just look from there as you're able to write your notes. And I definitely like you to write in cursive as well. But for those of you who are just really struggling with it, it's more important to understand what is happening here and to write it, whether that's in print or cursive. So if you're just getting too frustrated with the cursive, it's okay to write in print. That is all for your lesson today. I hope you have a wonderful spring break, and we will talk soon. I will see you either in class later on after you're watching this, or have a wonderful spring break, and I'll see you in about a week and a half. Bye.